Hoş geldiniz, or welcome. I had prepared a speech in Turkish, and more or less went like this. Dear delegates, dudes and girls, welcome to Istanbul. And then, thank God we have succeeded in all of this. Enjoy both the exhibition and the conference. I'll just say a few words, and then I will introduce some housekeeping, and then I will introduce you to our keynote speaker. First of all, there are a few thanks that are very important. This event has been possible thanks to Ozden Shahin, who has worked with me all the way through for the past 2 years, and for the vision of Professor Mehmet Bach, who's the Dean at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. It has been an incredible hard work, and I hope you will appreciate it. On housekeeping side, the boat this afternoon is going to be at 5 p.m. leaving from Kabataş. We will send you a newsletter through the PhD list from ICEA Istanbul, and we look forward to seeing you all there. It's organized by Electra, and it's Istanbul will be about showcasing the best of contemporary art. We have a strong relationship with the Biennale, but it will also be about networking and creating new projects, because that's what I believe that makes this sort of events worthwhile. Regarding our keynote, Professor Sean Cubitt, is somebody that I have personally admired for many, many, many years. I remember when I was doing my PhD, I was reading his digital aesthetics. He was at Central St. Martin's many years ago, and he left a sign within a very positive one, within the research center at Central St. Martin's. It is, for me, a very great honor to present Sean Cubitt. Thank you so much, Joe.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai. He mihi tenei kia koutou katoa. My name is Sean. I'm an honorary Kiwi, and I'm very proud and very grateful to be here in Frankfurt. I'm going to read, which I don't normally do, but I think trying to keep to time may be more valuable than breaking the tradition. So, and I will apologise because I'm going to talk about a very formal aspect of digital media. I know our other keynotes are going to be looking at much broader issues, but I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about just one very small aspect, which is to think about time. The repression of time in dominant media is a characteristic of the digital age. At the same time, the emergence of new forms of digital temporality at the technical level demonstrate grounds for hope that a new relationship with time can emerge. But then again, there are institutional and economic pressures fighting to maintain the atemporal character of our times. The struggle over space and time is the meat and potatoes of digital media, and I want to try to explain what I mean by that. It was for many, many, many years a truism of film and media studies that we lived in an era dominated by the hegemony of illusionistic and narrative media. Avant-garde struggled for abstraction and for non-linear and anti-narrative modes of working. Meanwhile, it was becoming apparent that the development of neoliberal finance capital on one hand and biopolitical management of populations on the other had formed a new political economy whose foundation was a new aggregation of media. I pause here to make a theoretical point. I'm sorry, it's very early in the morning for theory, but there you go. We learn from the Marxist tradition as much as from the very different theses of neoliberal ideology that the economy is the foundation of society. The rival claim most cogently voiced by Foucault is that power, politics, governmentality is the formative agenda of social life. both share the belief that there is a foundation. Some forms of feminist and green politics have similar structures: patriarchy, Gaia, relations between genders, or to the natural environment, are key to a good many variants of both. It's important, however, to understand that these terms, market, polity, patriarchy, nature, are abstractions, as indeed is the term society. I really hate agreeing with Margaret Thatcher, but to a certain extent there is no such thing as society, though I think we come from rather different points of view. We need high-level abstractions like these in order to make arguments and discuss values, but we should not mistake them for materiality or materially, physically present facts. It's impossible to see a market. You can't pick up a polity, you can't shake hands with nature. What we must do is enter relationships with human and non-human others, mediated through gesture, or money, or art, or bits, whatever. Mediation is the material form of power, what Foucault refers to as its capillary action, the media through which authority travels from rulers to ruled, or resistance to power acts against rule. Mediation is the material form of exchange made concrete in the exchange of metals, bills, and now of bits, as well as of the material goods and services which we call the economy. A market is a complex collection of mediations between people and raw materials, factories and corporations. Mediations comprise the whole gamut of devices, from clothing to surgical intervention, which make the relation between genders materially significant. And the relations between people and environment are not mental abstractions, but enacted through physical mediation of toxins, pollutants, husbandry, forestry, fishery, and so on. Both power and economy require media to complete their tasks, media without which they cannot function. Mediation names the material processes of interconnection, influence, reverberation, communication, which in specific formations and at specific levels of abstraction we call power or economy, and so on. So much for theory. Mediation requires media, and those media have histories which shape the digital forms which now in turn shape our world, and that's what I want to concentrate on. The dominant media of the 21st century are no longer story and picture, but the three pillars of the political economy: spreadsheets, databases, and geographical information systems. It's the task of digital arts in this century to address the peculiar qualities of these dominant media forms, and of eco-critical thinking to demand better of them. But first, we need to analyse how they're constituted. The best way to do that, I believe, is to analyse how they came into being, how their characteristic forms of action derived from earlier technologies and practices. This also has the additional virtue of giving us some traction on how we might retrofit abandoned practices, and also how to recognise genuinely new ones, to hasten the development of new media formations, new art, but also new political economies and new human relationships, new relations with the organic world. Now it seems that writing probably first began as records of transactions in the time of Sumer, about 8000 BCE. For centuries across the Old and New worlds, various means of keeping tallies proliferated, and from them derived much of our mathematics. Double-entry bookkeeping, providing a schematic record of profit and loss, was first formalised and published by Bartolomeo de Pacioli, pictured here, in 1494, so only a couple of years after Columbus. The ledgers used at the time were narrative in form, in the sense that they began at the beginning and were ordered chronologically. It was only the invention of new mechanical aids, like adding machines and cash registers, that changed that narrative form into something rather different. Much the same is true of the ancestors of databases. Ledgers recording the duties owed and redeemed by peasants to their feudal lords or vassals to their sovereigns, and later daybooks recording the activities of the Spanish and Portuguese empires, and in factories, and the emergent poor schools and hospitals of the 18th century were written down in the order of their occurrence. Parish records of births, marriages and deaths were written as they happened, and the writing was part of the ritual life of the community. In this instance, the invention of the filing cabinet allowed a new kind of order, one based on arbitrary systems like the alphabet. These made retrieving information simpler, but they did so by abstracting the acts described from their place in the order of time. Instead, date became a system just as arbitrary as the alphabetic order. Now, the mechanisation of bookkeeping and maintaining files went hand in hand with new media like calendars and diaries made popular by mass printing, which Lisa Gittelman has been writing about recently. The temporal order of exchanges recorded in the old ledgers was now rapidly being transformed into a spatial order. And that order was being matched to a cellular grid extending into the future as well as the past. I'm thinking here of the layout of an empty calendar that projects into the past the empty grid of all the events that can possibly occur, matched to this conceptually infinite succession of days or of cells marking the advance of time, abandoning the old semantic cycle of the monkish hours of the Benedictine rule. Like the conceptually infinite succession of future transactions, notably the command and control of debt, which is, of course, a way of managing the future, controlling the future through debt. And the filing cabinet as an instrument of rule, calendars and diaries help compose the rectilinear and conceptually infinite grid of contemporary spreadsheets and databases. Accountancy and record keeping involve essentially human relationships. The map, however, extended the range of power in the age of the great navigations and the first precursors of globalization and colonization to control over geography. Map making completed the first great act of modernity, the alienation of land from the people who live in it, which was this transformation was at its most profound and most destructive in the great achievement of feudalism. It's what feudalism managed to do to alienate us from land. The translation of typically lateral observations into typically flat representations. If you look, for example, at Cook's logs of his voyages, you get sideways views of coasts, which are later translated into vertical maps of those same coasts. The mapping also of the curvature of the Earth onto 2D surfaces created magnificent leaps in the geometric arts, an object of great beauty. But it also provided rulers and colonists who were their chief market with a God's eye view of the planet. Many of them bore and still bear the trace of time in the form of trails and markers for historic monuments, markers of risk and bounty, here be dragons, X marks the spot. Many maps trace historical boundaries and shifting time.